Hi everyone, Andrew back. I hope that you guys are doing well. Sorry, I got a sudden itch on my nose, of course, as I'm starting the video. But hi, I hope that you're doing well. Welcome back. As you can tell from today's title and the thumbnail, which I'm very excited about, I mentioned that last week. But this is actually going to be the first official video of the HRHQ series. Again, as I mentioned last week, I was kind of having trouble deciding on what I wanted the thumbnail to look like, and then once I got the idea, kind of executing it and, you know, feeling satisfied with it. So that's kind of why this has been delayed a bit. But again, like I said last week, I feel satisfied with my thumbnail and my content choice for the first video. So I'm very excited to announce that this is the first official video of HRHQ. Again, something else that I mentioned last week was that I had like a playlist made called HRHQ. But essentially those just contained Barista Basics videos that were more focused on HR topics, but still were heavily influenced and, you know, kind of were related to a lot of coffee related examples, specifically Starbucks. But these HRHQ videos, these official ones, are not gonna, you know, have any mention. I mean, I might pull information from my personal experience, like at Starbucks or at other jobs that I've worked, but it's not going to specifically be like coffee related content with an HR twist. It's just gonna be purely HR stuff, which I'm very excited about because that is what I would like to do in the future. So I'm super excited to get into this. So without further ado, we can get into today's topic, which, as you can tell from the title, is how to prevent work burnout. Now, this is kind of funny because if anyone knows me personally, you know that it seems kind of silly that I'm the person to be making a video about how to prevent work burnout when I myself am suffering from work burnout because I work myself to death. I work 7 days a week. A lot of times those are double shifts as well, or like, you know, closing shifts or an opening shift, whatever. So I don't have a lot of personal time. All of my time is spent working. So it's very easy in that case to suffer from work burnout, which I definitely am. But I'm also crazy. And even with all that said, I still find I self-motivate myself to do it. But again, that's just like a me thing. And that's not really what the point of this video is. The point of the video is to help you if you are suffering from work burnout and it is really like super negatively affecting your life in some way, whether it be personally, you know, professionally, at your job, you know, whatever. If it's affecting you negatively in some way, which work burnout will in some way or another, it's not a positive thing, of course, hence the term burnout. But this video, again, is meant to sort of provide some tips or just, you know, kind of provide some insight into some different things, certain aspects of jobs that can cause work burnout, and also some things that can help you prevent getting work burnout. So again, it kind of seems like I'm full of hot air because I am the most guilty of this. But I still feel like the information is valid, so I felt that it was important to share. But anyways, I always do this. It takes me like 5 minutes to get into the actual content of the video, and I apologize for that. I just love to talk, clearly. Catch my breath. Okay, so the first topic, or rather the first topic in this video is going to be, well, I shouldn't say topic, really. The first tip to prevent work burnout, I should say, is variety of tasks. Now, this is a concept and idea that I mentioned in my, I forget the name of the video exactly. The employee engagement one, how to increase employee engagement, I'm pretty sure it was called. This was an idea that I talked about in there, and there might be some similarities between this video and that one, but again, these ideas kind of can go together. You know, decrease employee, how I should flip that. Work burnout can decrease employee engagement. So that's why a lot of these ideas might sort of be repeated. but they're still valid for the sake of this video. So the first one, again, is variety of tasks. So where do we start with this? So I guess I should define it. Obviously, variety of tasks refers to doing different tasks that require different skills, maybe even different parts of your brain, like more analytical tasks versus more creative tasks. These really help prevent work burnout because you basically feel like you're not stuck in this almost like monotonous loop where you punch into work, you clock in, you do the same thing for 8 hours, and then you clock out, and then you go home, sleep, and rinse and repeat. If you do a variety of tasks, then that can help motivate you and, again, can engage different parts of your brain, which is kind of funny because it may cause mental exhaustion, which in kind of a different form can cause work burnout. But I like to think of it as like when you complete or when you undertake like a Sudoku or a crossword, or even like a word search, anything like that. It's sort of difficult when you're in the midst of doing it. Obviously, you're using a lot of brain power to solve whatever it is you're solving. But then as soon as you solve it, it was all worth it. You feel that instant gratification, that instant satisfaction. That is what the goal of a variety of tasks is meant to achieve, kind of that same thing, where you actually feel like you are doing something worthwhile instead of just doing the same thing over and over again. And so it goes without saying that when you feel like your work is not being, there's a better way that I can phrase that. When you feel like you are doing the same thing over and over again and nothing's really changing, you can kind of suffer from like emotional exhaustion. Like you just don't feel motivated to do anything because, you're like, for what reason? It's the same thing always happens. There's no difference. So it can be really kind of easy to get stuck in this mental loop, which can cause work burnout. So again, introducing a variety of tasks can help prevent this. So some examples of variety of tasks could be, like I said, you could take on a more, again, these are also general examples. These obviously are not all applicable to certain jobs, but, for example, you could do like a more analytical task one day, maybe like researching something or using really like in-depth or kind of complex problem-solving skills, whereas another day you could try to exercise more kind of creative problems or problems that you can tackle creatively, whether it be, this one's a bit more tough because I myself am not a super creative person, but an example of a task like that could be, again, this isn't applicable to every job, but maybe creating, like, talking to one of your superiors and maybe undertaking a project where you help design something, or, you help, I don't know, propose an idea and you have to help draft the, kind of like the paper to present the idea. Things like that, things that kind of let you exercise the more creative part of your brain, that would help also to create this variety of tasks. So, yeah, long-winded first point, but bottom line is variety of tasks can help prevent work burnout because essentially you feel like your work is almost more worthwhile and you feel like you're not kind of stuck in the same loop, which can lead to kind of that emotional exhaustion or that lack of motivation, which can cause work burnout. Now, the next point that I want to mention is, well, this one is kind of more general. It's kind of just good general life advice, but make sure that you give yourself breaks. Again, this is very surprising coming from me, but giving yourself breaks is obviously very important to prevent work burnout. Now, this is to say breaks while you're at work, but also breaks separate from work. So I'll touch on both ideas. So the first one, breaks at work. Again, this is something that you shouldn't abuse, obviously, like leaving your desk or, whatever, every 5 minutes to do something to take your mind off work. That's kind of procrastinating at that point. That's not what I'm trying to encourage. But, if you, are at your desk and you're there for, a good chunk of time, a few hours, and even if you don't have to use the bathroom, if you want to go to the bathroom and just, kind of like purge and just like, that sounds gross, because I'm talking about going to the bathroom. I mean, purge like your brain for a moment, just kind of like mindlessly scroll on some sort of social media, or, maybe watch like a quick little video or something. It's important to give yourself little breaks like this, little moments to help motivate you throughout the day. So not only do they motivate you, but of course, they also make you feel good, of course, because it's a break. You get to do something that you enjoy, or, watch something funny, whatever it is you may choose, which of course is a very satisfying feeling for you if you're doing something you like. Again, this isn't something that should be abused, but I do feel like it is important to make sure that you are giving yourself enough breaks at work. Like, I myself am really guilty of this because, at my jobs, the only time I ever really like give myself a break, or like the only time I ever go to the bathroom is to actually use the bathroom. It's not like I go in there and like scroll on Twitter or whatever for a few, which is something that, in theory, of course, sounds great because like that means like I'm a diligent, like hard worker or whatever. But also that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. You can still be a hard worker, a diligent worker, and even more productive. You probably end up being more productive if you, take breaks more often, because then again, you kind of get to re-energize yourself. You get to remotivate yourself. And again, this doesn't also just have to be, like using your phone, for example. Even if it's just you taking a walk outside, just like stepping away from your desk and taking a nice 5-minute walk. Maybe, you can walk outside and just enjoy nature, or maybe you can just have a quick chat with one of your friends, or, like a parent, your significant other, whomever, just kind of detox. It's really important, bottom line, to take breaks at work. Again, I don't want anybody to misunderstand this and say that I am trying to endorse, taking like 20 breaks in a single workday, whatever, because that is a lot. But it's important, again, to give yourself breaks during work so you can kind of just decompress and gather yourself, and just not focus on work for that short period of time. So kind of the second half of this point is giving yourself a break when you're outside of work. Now, again, this is more dependent on what kind of job you have, but, for a lot of jobs, they can follow you to your house. When you leave work, there's still work that you feel like you have to do while you're at home, or, when you're not at work, which is, of course, in theory, this sounds like something really good because, you're being like a diligent hard worker. But again, you have to think about, yourself, of course, your mental health, your, kind of emotional state, and how it's affecting you. It's not really healthy to be working all the time or have your life revolve around work. Again, go figure, I'm saying this, but it really is not healthy to do that. You need to have time for yourself, separate from work, where you don't have to worry about work. You can focus on something else that you enjoy. So it's very important to create sort of this divide, this distance between your home life, your personal life, and your work life. Again, that isn't to say that like you can't hang out with like your work friends or whatever. That's not what I mean when I make that divide. I mean like the divide between doing work at work and not doing work when you're not at work. And again, this also isn't to say that occasionally, if you really want to meet a deadline, or, if you want to get ahead of something, or, whatever reason, if you're home and just feeling antsy and, feeling particularly motivated, of course, by all means, please go ahead and do some work if you'd like. But just be aware that if this balance isn't carefully managed, then it can cause work burnout, because then you feel like you can't escape work. It's not you yeah, I mean, it literally is work burnout because you're working all the time and you're not giving yourself any personal time. So, giving yourself breaks while at work, but also separate from work, is also very important to prevent work burnout as well. There was another point that I wanted to say as well. We have the variety of tasks. We have giving yourself breaks. What else can you do before? Oh, also, this is kind of, again, a more general piece of advice, but making sure that you are leading like a fulfilling and healthy lifestyle outside of work. So again, this is kind of different than giving yourself a break from work, where the time that you do give yourself a break from work, it's important to make sure that you are doing stuff that fulfills you. Because if you feel fulfilled in your personal life, if you feel satisfied, you know, kind of just with where you are in life, whatever it may be, wherever you may be in life, then that can translate positively into work as well, because then you have basically a more positive or a brighter outlook on, you know, what you're doing at the current moment. Possibly this could even extend into how you feel about your future, a positive outlook on your future. It's really important to make sure that you make choices that are beneficial for you in your personal life. You know, so some examples of this could be, you know, exercising. If you're feeling a lack of motivation, I've heard from lots of people that exercising really helps different people in different ways, but it's helpful from what I've heard. Again, I don't do that personally. In case you can't tell, I literally look like a twig. But I've heard that exercising or working out is really great to sort of boost your mental health. Another thing too would be potentially to adjust your diet. You know, if you're feeding your body things that really aren't super good for it, or, you know, you eat something and then you kind of feel, you know, kind of crappy about it afterwards, you almost regret eating it, that obviously is not a good feeling. So you can kind of curb that problem by, you know, making, you know, healthier choices, or making choices that, they don't necessarily have to be healthier per se, but choices that at least you don't, you know, regret later on as soon as you're done eating it. Because I know I definitely suffer from that. Like, I'll totally pig out on something, like, not super good, and then afterwards I'm like, well, like, why did I do that? So it's important to be aware of this and to try to make more conscious decisions about what you're putting into your body, because that can also totally affect your mental and then obviously physical health as well too. Another important aspect to think about when you are thinking about how you can improve your kind of life outside of work, which again can help translate to a more productive work life, aka less work burnout, is also by doing stuff you enjoy. You know, there are a lot of times where I'm going to speak from my personal experience. There are a lot of times where, due to overworking, I don't really get to do a lot of the stuff that I like to do. Like, for example, I like to make these videos for one. I like to play video games. I like to watch videos and listen to music. Sometimes I like to mess around in Photoshop or, you know, stuff like that. I really like to organize too. But I can kind of satisfy that at work. But that's besides the point. Those are some of the things that I like to do, and things, or I like to write as well. That's also really fun. These are all things that really fulfill me. And when I do them, I feel happy. But a lot of times when I get off of work, I just feel so dead. I mean, usually I get out of work late at night anyway, so I super feel tired because it's nighttime. But, you know, as I'm sure you guys have seen by not seeing the videos being posted, you know, the past few weeks, disregarding last week, that's a perfect example of work burnout causing me to not do something that I enjoy doing because I'm simply just too tired. Like, literally a few weeks ago, I would get home after opening from Starbucks on today, Thursday, and just absolutely, like, not want to do anything. Like, there would be a part of me nagging, like, you should be doing this because you want to do this. But physically, I was just like, I can't. Like, I just want to lay down and not do anything really except eat and sleep, which is obviously not super healthy, especially when it's done, you know, pretty often in my case. So anyways, the whole point of that was to say, from my personal experience, I have learned that it is important to make room for stuff that you like to do in your personal time. So of course, this also helps you feel more motivated. Of course, it goes without saying, because if you're happier, again, this all relates in your personal life, then you, of course, can translate that into your work life too. So that's another important point too. Again, making sure that that time you do have outside of work when you're not working, that you are doing choices that, or that you are making choices rather, that help fulfill you, you know, that help give you a feeling of self-satisfaction, self-gratification, self-fulfillment, whatever it may be. I feel like there was one other point that I wanted to mention too. This is my last point, which is a more kind of work specific point, not so much general advice, but working in a team is also something that can help prevent work burnout too. But the reason I wanted to save this one for last is because there's a heavy emphasis on can help prevent work burnout, but also sometimes, unfortunately, it can exacerbate or increase work burnout. And this, of course, is dependent on what kind of team that you're in, you know, how your team members are and how well they perform. So, of course, this can go one of two ways. In the scenario where it helps prevent work burnout, well, rather, before I get into the specifics, I should speak more in general about why working in a team generally can help prevent work burnout. Which also reminds me of another point. These 2 points are going to relate, but working in a team, of course, allows you to interact with your coworkers, which is, of course, again, this is me generally speaking, but it's pretty fun getting to interact with your coworkers. You know, that sort of helps break up the monotony of the day by interacting with a different group of people kind of in a more close setting, you know, kind of more tight-knit communication. That can really help simply make your day more interesting, which of course, again, prevents the whole monotony kind of cycle, which again, in turn helps prevent work burnout. Also, sorry, I'm like speaking really poorly today. I don't know what's going on, probably the opening this morning, but I hope you can forgive me for that. I just felt the need to say that because I was noticing that I'm like stumbling over my words more than usual. But yes, so working in a team, in theory, again, generally speaking, allows you to interact with your coworkers more, again, so you get to interact with different people, which is good. But then also, it allows you, and it kind of relates to a variety of tasks too, because usually when you are a part of a team, you're a part of this longer term, kind of bigger scale project, which can help provide you motivation, you know, while you're at work, because you have an end goal that's not just the end of the day necessarily. You know, you could have certain deadlines for certain days, but your ultimate deadline, you know, the one way months in advance, knowing that you have that helps provide you motivation too. You know, because obviously you want to be motivated to achieve that goal in the end. So this is why teams in general can help prevent work burnout. But now going into specifically how the team itself is important in whether or not it is a detriment or something helpful. Because say, for example, you have a team where everyone does their part and everyone is super open to communication, you know, receptive to feedback. They provide feedback in a constructive way that's not demoralizing or, you know, rude or anything. Everyone, you know, is doing their fair share, basically. This can obviously help prevent work burnout for the reasons that I mentioned previously, but also because you have less of a burden placed on your shoulders. You know, when the work is shared equally, then, you know, everybody's burdened, of course, but they're all burdened the same amount, which means your burden is less, which is, of course, great. But again, this is an ideal scenario where, unfortunately, that may not necessarily be the case for every team that you work in. Of course, it depends on who's in your team. But on the other side of this, where it could potentially increase work burnout, which is super sad and unfortunate, is if you are part of a team that is basically the opposite of the team that I mentioned previously. So they're not open to communication. They are not good at receiving constructive feedback. They give really poor feedback. Either they give no feedback or their feedback is rude and not really helpful, or they don't pull their weight. Somebody just kind of is drudging along while everybody else is doing the hard work. This can, of course, increase work burnout because not only is it annoying simply to have to carry that burden more, like when the burden's not shared equally, you feel burdened by it, of course, and it's not fair. So that really can be demoralizing, which of course is like a great way to fall into the trap of work burnout. So essentially bottom line is, I apologize again. Bottom line is a team can be beneficial, but also can be hurtful depending on the team. So that's why I wanted to save this point for last, because it is not necessarily something that would be effective 100% of the time. Again, sort of in theory, when you think about working in a team in general, those first points that I mentioned do help prevent work burnout. But then when you get into the specifics of the actual team members, then the scale could tip from preventing work burnout to actually increasing work burnout. So just be careful of that. Again, obviously, a lot of times when you're put on a team, it's not necessarily your choice. So you kind of have to make the best of whatever situation you're given. But these are still things to keep in mind anyways, since we're talking about kind of all of these topics in theory in a more general sense. But yeah, I think that was the last point that I wanted to touch upon. Sorry that this video was kind of a mess. My brain is just experiencing a lot right now. I think like tiredness and also excitement from being able to officially post this, and just, a lot of stuff going on. But I hope that this video was understandable. I hope so, at least. And I also hope that, of course, you learned something interesting or useful. And I hope that you were able to take any of these tips and apply them to your job in one way or another. Really, any of these tips some of them at least, can be applicable to any kind of job. But, if a job you might get in the future that is different from your current job, you might be able to implement some of these other tips too, which I really hope you can do. But yeah, so that's it. I thank you guys so much for checking the video out. I hope that you were staying safe, sane, healthy, entertained, and motivated as always. And yeah, here's to the second week of posting in a row. Can't make any promises for next week, but I'm feeling pretty good. We'll see how Andrew is next Thursday, but I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty optimistic. So I think it's a safe bet to say that there will be a video next week. So I hope you look forward to it. And until then, I will see you guys. I hope you take care. Bye-bye.